I was given a piece of text recently in a class by a student, and I was given no context. I was given no background information. I was not told what the topic was. I wasn't even told who was really even speaking. And together, what we had to do was we had to piece together a strategy for how to say this sentence in a way that sounds natural. And it really got me thinking about all the techniques that we have with our voice that we can use to convey drastically different things. And so today I want to kind of just demonstrate some of those opportunities with us to show how, one piece of text, depending on the pitches you're using, the speed you're using, the volume, all of those things together and more can create drastically different experiences for your listener. And so we need to play around with our voice more. And I want to show you some ways that you can do that. Good morning, guys. Good evening. Good afternoon. Welcome to your daily American English pronunciation show, which is Wake Up American. We're here Monday through Friday, typically sometime between 7 and 8 a.m. to make sure that you can get in your 5 to 10 minutes of practice for today, because that's what it takes if you're serious about this. Is you got to show up for yourself every single day. I try to show up for you every single day, so hopefully you can do the same for yourself. On the journey for a more natural American English sound. And to guide you in this process, there is me. Hello, my name is Jeff. It rhymes with breath. That is one of the 4 keys to a natural sound, including placement, pitch, breath, trying to weaken your consonant sounds in order to strengthen your vowel sounds. We're also joined today by Emmanuel. What's up, Emmanuel? Great to see you. And all of these strategies that we're going to talk about and more are going to be available in an upcoming workshop that, if you guys don't mind, I will tell you about towards the end, which is called Text to Life. So we're going to be talking about ways to take written sources and say them in a way that sounds very natural and spoken, which is hard to do because a lot of times when you read something out loud, it's hard to convey it in a way that sounds natural in any language. Like if I gave you a book in your first language and I said, hey, read this out loud, most likely you have a reading voice and everyone can immediately tell that you're reading. They can tell that you're not actually talking like that. So we're trying to think of ways to avoid that. Hello also to Davis. So let's look at what our text actually is today. And so I'm just going to kind of demonstrate some different things. So let's the most neutral way, if you were going to read this, just like reading, it'd probably be like, give us some details here. What kind of jobs were they? Something like that. Very neutral. Not really sure how I'm supposed to interpret that. And I think the reality is that when we talk, most things we say are not actually neutral. There's some components to this. So let's maybe add some emotions here. So let's I want to focus on 2 emotions. Like I want to focus maybe first one, maybe a little bit of tension, maybe slightly angry. Like you need more information, you're trying to act, but you need more info. And then the other way I want to say it is with excitement. And so we're going to kind of compare those 2 emotions. So let's start off again with the first one, maybe a little bit of anger, a little tense, very serious. So what are some strategies we can kind of think about for doing that? Well, what we find in American English is that a lot of times to make something sound a little bit more serious and a little angrier, oftentimes what we incorporate are lower pitches. We see more falling intonations. We might feel a little bit more tension in our jaw. Okay, you might clench it a little bit more. You might cut the breath slightly and things like that. Okay. So just keeping those immediate things in mind, we can try to add to it. So that first part, so instead of saying, give us some details here, you might be like, give us some details here. Give us some details here. Compare that to the neutral, like, give us some details here. Give us some details. So notice that give us some details here. There's no real, the intonation differences on all the words is fairly small. There's some moments like details. That's still a falling intonation. But if I do like details, well, now what happens? I start higher pitch, lower pitch. So now the gap for the falling intonation is a lot wider. And that's allowing me to convey a little bit more of that emotion. Okay. You can also tell, like, if I say details, details, a lot of breath movement versus details, details. Hear the difference between like D versus D. It's like cutting the breath a little bit. Okay, adding a little bit of urgency there. So those are just some little things that are going into it intonation wise. So again, try to do the neutral for that, and then try to do what I did for the slightly angrier one. It's like, give us some details here. 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 Okay, so again, you're just going to know the pitch range is a little wider, falling intonation a little sharper, breath kind of cut. Um, we do a similar thing with the last part, like what kind of jobs were they? What kind of jobs were they? Very neutral, doesn't sound particularly interested. What kind of jobs were they? Um, I may also change the stress. Like maybe I'm really focusing on the jobs themselves, so I might stress were. Okay. What kind of jobs were they? What kind of jobs were they? Do you see how the word just kind of pops? What kind of jobs were they? A couple things, if I'm making that sound just a little bit, adding a touch of anger to that, some things that are happening. The what kind of jobs, that part's going fast. What kind of jobs? What kind of jobs? What kind of jobs? And then the were, what am I doing? I'm slowing down time. Slower, a little bit forceful, doing that same intonation thing, widening the gap for the following intonation. Higher pitch on wha, and then dropping on the or. Were they? Were they? Compare that with the more neutral. Were they? Were they? Were they? Were they? Hear the difference? Were they? Neutral. Were they? A little bit more emotional there. So if we do the whole thing, like give us some details here. What kind of jobs were they? Versus give us some details here. What kind of jobs were they? Okay. So these are the types of things that we are discussing really quick. You can do other things too. For instance, maybe you're going to add some pauses. I know pauses have a negative reputation, but they're very effective tools for dialogues. Like, for instance, instead of saying, what kind of jobs were they? Like, what kind of jobs were they? Like something like that. What, pause, kind of jobs, pause, were they? What kind of jobs were they? Something like that. Just kind of like punctuating your words and things like that. Another little strategy you can kind of tie in there. Guys, if you're finding this helpful, I'll be honest, I think there's another thing you're going to find helpful too. We will talk about the excitement in a moment, but I just want to talk about an opportunity that you have if you're finding this to be useful, because we're going to be doing a lot of this over the weekend. So we have an upcoming workshop. Okay. This workshop is called Text to Life. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to take some written text, and our goal is to just kind of show you what are some strategies for adding emotion to it. Okay? Because we don't want you to sound boring and neutral and flat when you have to read something out loud, like whether it's like a presentation or a transcript, or maybe you have to do a speech or a report, and you're trying to plan it out. Okay? This is how we can do it in a way that sounds really natural. So if this sounds like something you're interested in, okay, you can go to fluentamerican.com/text to life. Right now, all our on-screen student spots, I'll be honest, those are full. So you can't be on screen with me, but you can interact with us via the chat. You can watch live. You can ask me questions as we go through the workshop. Okay, it would be great to see you. This is on Sunday, 29th, 10:30 a.m. New York. Okay, to give you some context, 10:30 a.m. is about 2.5 hours from now, New York time. Okay, it's probably going to be about 60 to 90 minutes is the plan. Okay, though if we need to answer questions and things, we'll do that. But that's 29th happening this weekend. It'd be great to see you there if it sounds like something that you would be interested in. I appreciate you allowing me to discuss that a bit. Let us now talk about the second part, second way to say this. So ways to say this with a little bit of excitement. It's like you're excited about this situation. So again, the neutral was, give us some details. What kind of jobs were they? Versus like, give us some details. Like, hey, give us some details. What are we doing? Well, with excitement, some of the things that you see are the exact opposite of what you see with anger. You see higher pitches. Way higher pitches. So instead of saying, give us some details. Okay, give us some details. Give us some details here. Okay. Notice that again, like the pitch range is higher, but it's still playing by a lot of the similar rules where we want to kind of widen the range for our intonation. Okay. Like, give us some details here. Give us some details here. Okay. Another way you often can show excitement to speeding things up. Like, give us some details here. Okay. A lot when people get excited, they tend to talk a little bit faster. You may feel this when you're nervous too. Sometimes you're preparing a presentation and like you've done your practice and you feel good, but then you actually do your presentation and you're like, wow, that was like 5 minutes faster than when I practiced it, because you just kind of fly through because out of that nervous kind of energy. Okay, like give us some details here. You may also get some like wavering intonation, like here. Give us some details here. Okay, adding some little things, for instance, like little breaths, like it's like adding those little things can be helpful too. Like, give us some details here. Um, but you can also like go understated as well. Okay, this is something I'm working with the students a lot. I think a lot of people, when they think emotion, they think really exaggerated emotion. It's not always going to end up that way, though. So, like, instead of like doing like, what kind of jobs were they? What you could do, like, to show, you could still show like genuine interest and excitement about something. You could be like, give us some details here. What kind of jobs were they? What kind of jobs were they? Okay, so again, some eagerness to hear the answer. So another option, again, just going lower pitches. Um, like what kind of jobs? Little waiver there. Jobs were they? But again, lower pitches, but still trying to increase that pitch range. It's not what kind of jobs were they? What kind of jobs were they? Okay, were they? What kind of jobs were they? Okay, so let's compare the neutral to the excited. Give us some details here. What kind of jobs were they? Give us some details here. What kind of jobs were they? Okay, you can probably hear the difference. Practice that stuff, guys. Again, if you're interested in learning more, I encourage you to check out fluentamerican.com text life. Imagine doing an hour, 90 minutes of this, just practicing with different things to try to convey different emotions and make your speech come to life the next time that you have to deliver a written source into a spoken format. Thank you guys for hanging out with me. Look, there's a million pronunciation resources out there, so the fact you are here during your day is greatly appreciated. Wish you all a happy Friday, and keep at it. We'll be back next week with more Wake Up American. Once more, my name is Jeff. Rhymes with breath. It's one of the 4 keys to a natural sound: include placement, pitch, breath. Trying to weaken your constant sound, strengthen your vowels. I will see you all later. I hope you have a good day, have a good night, and a good afternoon. Take care, guys.